Hello, Albertans. I've decided to redo this video. I just shot it an hour ago and I went and dropped off my girls. I was reviewing it on the way home and I decided it isn't going to hit the average Albertan. It hasn't been articulated well enough, so I'm going to redo that for you right now. Our economic crisis here in Canada and specifically Alberta is at the worst in probably the world of COVID today. I'm going to break that down for you right now. Canada borrowed with the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau $380 billion. From start of the year to the seventh month here in August, $380 billion. To do that, Justin Trudeau presented Canada's GDP. This was done many months ago on the initial major draw on loans. He did that when Alberta's GDP was ranked much higher. The total amount borrowed of the $380 billion, $53 billion of that money was put against Alberta's GDP 3.5 months ago. $53 billion out of the $380 billion. Jason Kenney last Thursday presented an updated deficit of $24.2 billion, 2.2 times more than Ontario per person capita deficit borrowing for that province. Jason completely blew everybody out of the water. This is the record amount of deficit a province has ever taken in the history of Alberta. It's one of the highest per person per capita deficits taken on a region, state, territory, or other, probably in the COVID world. We're right up there with Japan. They don't have the same system as us. We're both constitutional monarchies. However, in Japan, there is only federal and municipal tax structure. Provincial tax structure doesn't exist. They're called a constitutional monarchy, but they have the emperor system. Their prime minister was in power for decades, okay? He left on stress leave because he's going to see his country take a double dip in their credit rating. According to Finch, Moody's, and Standard, they're going to get a double dip. What does that mean? They're currently at an A. They're likely to hit a double B. For those of you who don't know about Japan, they call it the slavery of Asia because the GDP to debt ratio is so astronomical towards the debt side that it would take 1,000 years to pay it back, if they could ever even pay it back. Because of the deficit spending that they've entered into, their society is shrinking. Because their citizens are so devalued, their society is shrinking. Birth rates are in the negative. And if your population continues to shrink, but your debt mountain is so high, what do you think happens? Well, you can't service those debt payments. Your interest rates go up and you just spiral out of control. To put it into perspective, Japan, that much far ahead of Canada and Alberta on this debt crisis. But even combined, Canada and Alberta's deficit spending outdoes Japan, the highest deficit spender in the entire world. The only difference is our credit rating was higher to begin with. Canada took that $53 billion, and of that, it only cycled back in a net gain for Alberta, $10 billion. Jason Kenney, instead of being the physical conservative, the high school graduate, con job con artist, didn't fight the good physical conservative fight, didn't say a word about it, turned around and assisted Justin Trudeau by borrowing against Albertans another $24.2 billion. 24.2 plus 53 billion. Almost $80 billion against 4.2 million people. You are not going to find any region in the world that hits that scale. It is obscene. There's nothing conservative about it. It is the reverse in loan. We basically borrowed to ensure COVID equalization. Okay? That debt will be measured against Alberta. If we leave, we take that portion of the debt. This is what the system is doing to you. This is what happens when you have federal parties with provincial counterparties. This is what you get. It's Liberal, it's NDP, it's Green, and it's CPC UCP. We watched Jason Kenney get elected. He took Doug Schweitzer, a failed politician who could not gain anything in the business community. I debated this man live in front of the Ukrainian Business Association for all of Alberta, and he couldn't do it. Ed Stelmach had to get up and try to take over for him, and I beat him down too. The media in Canada, and I hope Alberta is going to be changing the narrative. So far, they're changing the federal narrative, but why aren't they changing the provincial narrative? We're going to go through these analysis. You're going to see it over the next few weeks to several months as you watch those global creditors who are in charge of assigning the credit rating for every UN state in the world, for every major international corporation, for every state, province, region, or territory in the world. They're going to double down on Alberta. And guess where that puts us? A double B. A double B credit rating is the line in the sand where all international investors do not cross. That means high school Jason Kenney graduate, all his economic policies will matter for naught. He could lower taxes to zero. He could cut wages to $2 an hour. No investor is going to invest in a province, region, territory, or state with a double B credit rating. Most domestics will flood out of Alberta. This is what no one's telling you. And in a short while here, it's going to become reality. And you're all going to see it. Jason's going to continue spending to keep the federal system in place. Borrow for equalization. That's what we're doing. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There's much more that we're going to go through. And we need to get this information out. We need to bring Albertans on board because it's not fair for the people who are going to be the next Venezuela. That's where we're going.